Now let's talk about this season that we're now moving into. And keep in mind that, again, it's about transformation. And we have two eclipses coming up. One is on May 20th, and that'll be in Gemini, and it'll be at 0 degrees of Gemini, so just barely into Gemini. And then the second one will be on June 4th, and that'll be at about 14 degrees of Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sagittarius. And the reason I say it that way is because every time there's a new moon, the Sun and Moon are exactly in the same place. Anytime there's a full moon, the Sun and Moon are opposite from one another. So it's not just the moon that we have to talk about, it's the Sun and the Moon. It's their relationship with one another that is what a full moon is about. So it's Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sagittarius at about 14 degrees. So do we have anyone in the house that's, I know you are, Deborah. Yeah, so Gemini or Sagittarius? Suns, okay. Does anyone know their chart enough to know if they have a moon in Gemini or Sagittarius?
Sun,
The rising sign in Gemini or Sagittarius? You know you do? Okay. So, I mean, if you know your chart, you know more, but at least you should know that if your sun is in Gemini or your sun is in Sagittarius, you're more apt to go through change this coming eclipse season than someone who's not those signs. Pisces and Virgo would be the next most affected because they're also mutable signs, like Gemini and Sagittarius. And if you know your chart, then you know where's your Venus, where's your Mars, where's your Mercury, where's your Jupiter, and if any of those are in Gemini, Sagittarius especially, or Pisces and Virgo also, you'll be ready for some change. Now, of course, it's more even specific than that because it's at 0 degrees of Gemini. So, for instance, if your birthday is around May 20th, anyone's birthday around May 20th, then it's really going to be a large change for you because your sun's at 0 degrees of Gemini and this eclipse is at 0 degrees of Gemini. Hi. That's okay. So those are the two eclipses. So if you've got any planets around those degrees, you can expect there to be a lot of change in your life, a lot of shifts in your life. Now, all the shifts don't always happen like on an outer level. They're not always about like the stuff in your life or the people in your life so much or the job, although a lot of times it can be that. Oftentimes it's like inner attitudes too. Like you will get an opportunity, things will shake up inside of you that will help you to release some old beliefs, some old attitudes, some old ways of thinking that will be helpful for you. Usually there's both. Usually, if you're going to get something on the inside, it's oftentimes because something on the outside is stoking what's on the inside. But sometimes it's mainly inner that you're going to go through, and sometimes it's mainly outer, but usually it's a combination of the two. So if you don't have birthdays or planets around those degrees, that doesn't mean that you're immune from the shifts or the changes. It just means that you likely won't be as affected as someone who's got their birthdays at those times. But I also know, like sometimes an eclipse will hit, and it's not anywhere in your chart. But yet at the same time, there's another transit going on in your natal chart, to your natal chart. And so, because the eclipses kind of like ignite things, it kind of ignites whatever transit is going on in your chart otherwise, too. So just expect this time to be a time of things kind of really moving. Now, since it's Gemini and Sagittarius, you can expect that it's like a lot of energy that'll be moving. I mean, Gemini is fast-moving mind, and Sagittarius is fast-moving spirit. So you can expect spirit and mind to be going fast, conversations to be picking up, thinking to be picking up. That'll be a lot of what the energy will be like, regardless of what the events are that are going to change and shift in your life. Those of you that know Geminis and Sagittariuses, yes, Deborah's showing me what she does. And Liz, you know that they talk a lot, so you may be talking a lot too, even if you're not a Gemini or a Sagittarius during that time. And then I believe that you'll also be affected because Uranus, there's a lot of transits that are going on during that eclipse season, and it's not just the eclipses. The Uranus-Pluto that's going to be a 3-year transit from 2012 to 2015, will have its first pass at the end of June. So for that one, if you're an Aries especially, any Aries? No Aries? If you're an Aries or a Capricorn, because that's where Pluto will be. Capricorns? Yes. And any Libras? No?
Yeah.
Right, yes, I know. And any Cancers? You'll be affected by the Uranus square Pluto, especially if your birthday is in the first third of that sun sign. So if you're in the 5 to 10 or 11 degrees of the sign, you'll be more affected than someone who's born at the very end of Cancer or the end of Aries or something like that. And then also during this eclipse season, Venus will be retrograde. Remember, we've gone through Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde recently. And so, you know, if you've been following it and tuning in, that during the retrograde times, you have to kind of rewind, reflect. A lot of re's happen because you're not really getting to move forward. You're having to stop, pause, go inside, reflect, and see what's going on in your life. Sometimes people from your past will come back during a retrograde time. And you can expect that during Venus retrograde too. Venus retrograde happens in the middle, on the 15th of May is when it first goes retrograde. So you can expect people from your past to come back to you during that time. They may not come back in the flesh, but perhaps they will, but they also may come back in dreams or in real distinct nostalgic memories. And the purpose of that is to kind of get you to where whatever new patterns you've got in your life that are ripe to change and shift around relationship, because remember, Venus retrograde is going to be about relationship more than anything else. So if you've got anything in your life, any patterns that are ripe for change, Venus retrograde will get you stoked for those changes and those shifts in your patterns. Sometimes we're in a relationship and whatever the pattern is or whatever the dysfunction is, we kind of push it away. We go about our everyday lives because we have everyday lives. We don't have time to always be dealing with our relationship patterns. But when it's Venus retrograde, oftentimes whatever it was that we pushed aside comes right back up again to take a look at. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, if it comes up, it means that there's something in your relationship that you've got an opportunity to let go of the old dysfunctional, toxic pattern that's not good for you, and you have a chance to rewrite that pattern. Yes, sometimes people do let go of people, friends, relatives, romantic relationships during Venus retrograde, but usually it's more about patterns than it is about having to let go of people, though sometimes it is. And we also have a shift between June 19th and June 27th, which will still be within the eclipse period, but pretty much toward the end of this eclipse period. And by the way, you can look at the eclipse period as being from early May all the way through early to mid July, just generally speaking. That'll be the eclipse period. And then around the 19th to the 27th, there'll be another kind of turning point within that eclipse period. And that's because, of course, we got a summer solstice that'll be happening. And also Uranus square Pluto will be happening then, which I've been talking about. And then you'll also have Venus will go back direct, where it started retrograde on the 15th of May. And then you'll also have Saturn will be going direct also. And Saturn, of course, is kind of like the hand of time. So a lot of things that have been planned and put off while Venus was retrograde, you'll be ready to kind of get those plans going and moving forward. So you can look at the 19th to the 27th as a turning point that could mean, okay, now let's move forward in a bigger way with whatever our plans are for the future. So what might happen in the bigger world? Well, in the bigger world, I've noticed that a lot of the transits that have been going on have had Iran in the mix. When Mars went retrograde, Europe put sanctions on Iran. And then when Mars went direct, there was a meeting the Western powers and Iran to get them to stop their uranium enrichment and building a nuclear bomb in their mind. And now, on May 23rd, which is just a couple of days after that solar eclipse in Gemini, they're going to have their second meeting. So you can see that these transits are all kind of falling in really neatly with what's happening with Iran. So what does that tell me? That tells me that whatever's happening with Iran has a lot to do with what's our bigger world transformation is about. Well, Iran is like what happens in the world is they pick out these enemies, Iraq, Iran, whoever, and then that's the one that you're going to like develop a hatred for, so you can get all patriotic and ready to fight them. And that potentially is the next big enemy. Well, it is already. They're already painting it that way. So just know that in your own heart that it's good to be into unity consciousness, because that's where we're moving. We're all one. Even if war does break out and it turns out to be something big, it's getting so large, the group of people that are getting into unity consciousness and believing that we're all one, that the movement is still going to be in that direction, moving into this new age. So don't be afraid, don't get all freaked out, even though that's easy to do when something like that happens. But if it does happen, we're moving in the right direction, and there's nothing to panic about. And then there'll be other changes that happen during this eclipse season, and we'll just see what those are. The economy's not totally stable, no matter what everybody tells you. So, watch for that to shift and change. And of course, that's going to move ultimately in a better direction too, where it's more fair for people all over the earth. Because right now, the economic system we have is really not fair for everybody all over the earth. And as things change and transform, that'll happen too. So that's about it for today. If anyone wants to talk to me more, I'll be in my office over there. Be happy to talk to you. And my blog, I got to go write it too. So,
Another new week.
Theo has a weekly blog for those of you that don't read it. Do you want to give that?
yeah, it's www.spiritualtherapy.wordpress.com. Spiritualtherapy.wordpress.com.